Hi, Celina.
Hey there. How are you, Joe?
I'm
Nice to
wonderful.
see you.
Great to see you. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. Doing great.
Excellent. Where are you located?
Well, my accent is from North Carolina, but I live in San Diego.
Oh, good for you. Yeah, I took a vacation to San Diego. That's just a total utopia out there.
Yeah, it's really great. We're spoiled rotten out here for sure with the weather.
Yeah, you are. You got a lot of awards back there.
Well, they're our team awards. I've had three companies. This last one I've had for 21 years, so you're bound to get a few awards in 21 years.
Yeah, you definitely have a lot of them. Well, we'll get into that. And
Yeah.
what I'd like to do to start off here, are you ready to dive in? Are you good to
Yeah,
go? Okay.
absolutely. Whatever you want to do.
Okay, cool. We'll dive right in. So again, thank you for taking a minute out. And I'd like to start everything with kind of the global elephant in the room, which has been COVID. We all went through quite an ordeal the last 3 years. How did you get through it? And how has it changed the way that you do things now in this post-pandemic era?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I have to say, our company was not affected by it. I've had a virtual company for 21 years. So when COVID came along, I was like, oh gosh, everybody is finally catching up to speed with doing things on Zoom and virtual meetings and things like that. So, from a business perspective, it didn't really affect us. We did have to pivot and really work with clients on like crisis communication and things of that nature. So, from a business perspective, we were very fortunate. From a personal perspective, it was really hard. I was coming out of a divorce and getting into dating. So dating during COVID was a whole other thing, right?
Yeah.
But you know what's interesting is I did find the love of my life on Bumble during COVID.
Good.
So for me personally, I look back and I feel bad because everybody had just such a horrible, experience in COVID. I look at 2020 and go, wow, it was a really good year. So don't hate me.
No, 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 no. And I hear that all the time. The silver linings that happened, I think,
Yeah,
it doesn't take away from the tragedy of what was happening with human lives, but at the
exactly.
same time, there were just people that had times that were very special.
Yeah, and I would say I'm the fortunate one to have had that. But you look at the repercussions of the folks that we work with, which are organizations in workforce and education, and boy, they had a rough time because many of them had to switch to figuring out to online learning, and then some of the customers they work with are underserved and underrepresented populations. Well, they don't have the tools to learn online. They don't, they're sharing a laptop with five other people in the house, right?
Yeah.
So that's the part to me that was really tragic. All the deaths and then all of the folks who really got behind the power curve and are still trying to catch up economically.
So you obviously run your own business, but what I want to do is kind of get to the essence of what you do daily. So I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders, career day. Okay. One of them looks up and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
I would say we are magical storytellers because that's what we do for a third grader. And then they'd say, "Well, who do you tell stories to?" They probably have follow-on questions, but that's it in a nutshell. And really, we help organizations that have a workforce and education mission have a relevant brand, and that's so important for them because when you think about it, they have to vie for funding, they have to keep services available to their community members, and oftentimes they don't have a lot of money to build a brand and do outreach to attract the folks they need in their programs. So that's what we help them do from a strategy perspective, all everything to do with marketing and communications, but it's in that niche.
So let's say you're in the third grade and you have
Okay.
somebody that's presenting to you and you start thinking about what you want to do with your life. What was your dream growing up? What did you want to become?
I wanted to be a professional basketball player.
Okay. All right. Did you play a lot?
I did. I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to play in college. And athletics is in sports is very important for me because it helped me sort of stay out of my alcoholic household, which is very tumultuous growing up. So my sister got me into this small private school and I played everything. I mean, everything I could get my hands on. Well, you have to think back then in North Carolina, there wasn't a whole lot to do anyway.
Huh.
So I just, was a big tomboy. And that served me well because I didn't have money to go to college, but I was able to get a basketball scholarship. So that was my dream in the third grade is like, oh, I'm going to be a professional athlete, even through Title IX and all that. Before all that happened, I was still dreaming about that.
So speaking of dreaming, you're obviously very highly driven. You have a lot of things that you want to do with your life professionally. How did all this start? Where were you? You're from North Carolina, but talk to me a little bit about the seeds that were planted into you that gave you this motivation to become who you are today.
Well, that's a great question. And I think, getting to where we are, wherever that is for me, it's never a linear path, right? It's not like, oh, I'm going to do this and then this is going to happen. It's very messy. And my sister really raised me. I call her my sissy Shiro. That's how she's listed in my contacts. She's 7 years older than me. And she was the one that really, the first motivator was survival. Just get out, do something, have the basic necessities in life. She got a worker's permit at 15 years old and made sure I had all of that. And also encouraged me to go into sports. And she was the one that would tell me, hey, if you can dream it, you can definitely go out there and do it. But she didn't just like, she really modeled those words. She started her own company. And I really had her as a role model, thank God. So she was my first, I said the first motivator was survival. Of course, that got replaced, after you start getting out there. But my sister definitely, I owe so much to her. I'm just always in gratitude. And she truly is my hero.
So if you could meet anybody alive on the planet right now and spend some time with them, who'd it be?
Do they have to be alive?
Well, we can open it up. Let's go everywhere.
Okay. I think the first person I'd want to meet is Ella Fitzgerald.
Wow.
I love her and her, not only her music, but her spirit. And one of the good memories I have in my childhood and growing up is my mom was a jazz singer in New York many, many years ago before she got divorced from her husband and relocated to North Carolina and met my father. But she'd play and she'd sing in the clubs there. So we constantly had jazz music playing in the house. And I found it to be kind of my saving grace. I'd hear that music and I go, oh, this is so great, even as a young kid. So I'd love to meet her. Um, I think from a who's living now, probably Serena Williams. Just love her athleticism and tenacity, and I think she'd be phenomenal to sit down and have a conversation with. So
Well, one of my main vocations is as a jazz radio host. So
yeah, yeah.
you're speaking my language. I've really branched out with interviews with professionals all over the world, but it's that feeling that you get, whenever I even ask a musician, it's hard to pinpoint, but it is that feeling that just goes right over you. Warm serum.
Oh,
So,
it's kind of like music really connects everyone across the globe. No matter what, if you hear music, there's some commonality in there, and I think that's really missing in our world today. Is like more alike we are than we are different, and I think music can bring that kind of glue to everybody.
yeah, it's the common language. It's the only one we all
Yeah.
universally understand. It's interesting. Someone asked me, I was asking them about what moment or concert they would like to see in jazz. And I didn't really my son is named Miles, so for obvious reasons. So
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I'm thinking about Miles, but I actually think I figured it out during one of the interviews. I would love
Mm.
to have seen Ella at the Apollo the very first time she got on
Mm.
stage, because there's a lot of stories about how nervous she was.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of stories from people that knew her and that met her that socially it was really hard for her to communicate with
Interesting.
people. But she was like, when she got on stage, it was like a whole different persona.
That's it. Don't you think so many entertainers are like that? They
Oh
have like
yeah.
Beyonce, right? Sasha Fierce, and
Yeah.
and then what are you like in real life, and then your persona. Yeah, it's very interesting.
It's wild. Like I heard stories about how JFK was terrified to speak for a long time, and he's one of the most eloquent presidents we've ever had, you know. So
That's
it's
interesting.
It's the ironies are wild for sure. So, speaking of people like Ella and Serena and all these other people, they obviously have a lot of motivation and spark. What is that for you to do your work and your job and to do it well? What's the motivation?
Well, the motivation for me is the vision that I hold in the company, and that would be where we help to create a world where everybody got up and loved, didn't wait to go to work, loved what they did. Because can you imagine the attitudes in the world, how that would change? Like you're doing your job, you have purpose and all of that. So that's kind of my vision. And what motivates me are our customer story. There was a adult education school we were working with here, and it's an example of one. And they were working with a woman in a storage unit. She was living in a storage unit. She was trying to get her high school equivalency and trying to get out of that life. They got her a laptop. They worked with her. She did that. She got some stackable credentials, built her skills. She's now making $60,000 a year. And to me, that's what motivates me is all the story, the big picture behind what we really do to be able to attract those folks into programs that can lift them up and elevate their lives. And there's so many of them that we hear every day from our customers, and it's to be a small part of that is really humbling, and so that's what's motivated us. And I look at our folks in our company, and we all are kind of the underdogs. And I don't use that term kind of in a condescending way. It's just like, hey, we've had a lot of struggles we've had to get through to get here today. And everybody on our team is kind of like that. I've had some people who were homeless, some are immigrants. They fought their way and are amazingly successful today. And so to me, that motivates me is like the final product of what we're doing.
So, of all the clients and all of the people that you've helped and served over the years, what's one of your favorite success stories?
I would say it's a recent well, there's so many of them. Like there's small ones like, the one I just shared. The large scale, I always love like replication. How can we replicate and scale what we're doing? We're working right now with the Coalition on Adult Basic Education, and we've done a campaign called hashtag Move Ahead with Adult Ed. And there's a website that we've developed that is like referrals. If someone's coming in and they're not built for a 4-year degree or can't afford it, but they do want to get skills to elevate their career pathways, they can go to the website. And we've engaged all the adult learning providers from across the nation. So a learner can go there and say, hey, I want to learn English better, or I want to get some basic skills. I'm going to find my provider in my area. So that has really been fantastic because we've elevated, what is adult education? It's a different pathway, that type of thing. Like I said, I don't think getting to what you love to do is a linear path. I think it takes many twists and turns, and people have different on ramps and off ramps during their life. Maybe they had to quit school and do that. So that one's really great. The other one we just did was similar one. We did a campaign in Illinois and got them back 40% more from what they were doing in enrollments pre-COVID, because enrollments just dropped during COVID with all of the craziness, people trying to figure out their lives and that type of thing. So those are the kind of projects I really, national, state level projects where we're scaling and we're reaching a lot of people.
What are you the proudest of that you've done in your life so far?
I think the proudest thing I've done is move from feeling like I was a victim because of my circumstances to being a whole human being and being able to give back in the world in that way from that space rather than for me or, oh, I'm a woman in business and there's a glass ceiling. It's like being able to really overcome those things. And I have to tell you, Joe, I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life at 63 years old. I'm like, this is just the best life. And it took a lot of work to get here,
Yeah.
a lot of twists and turns and things like that. But that's what I'm most proud of.
So that's a perfect lead into this question. If you had a dream tonight, ran into the 20-year-old version of yourself, and based on the wisdom you've gained so far and all of the time that you've had and the ups and downs and overcoming, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, I would say get mentors early on. Like my sister was a great mentor. But I've been lucky to find they've just kind of come in my life at different points. So I would say find someone who really believes in you and can support you in giving you good advice on the next step. A lot of times we turn to our family, our core family. Well, given mine was in such disarray, I had to create my own family, and that's okay to create another family that can support you in your pathway. Now, whether I would have listened to that advice at 20, I don't know. It's a
That's the
whole
other
other
thing.
thing.
Yeah. That's the other part of it. Yeah. So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, colleagues, clients, but you run the show. What is your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Mm, wow, who do I think I am? What's a good question? Who am I? I think I'm a woman that really likes to seek to empower other people, whether it's at work or in my day-to-day life. I believe in my dreams and I want people to believe in theirs. So I would think that's the perception. That's what I try to hold myself out to be anyway. You'll have to ask my friends, Joe. That's a different
Right.
interview.
That's right. The answer to this question is all over the map. So let me ask you this. We've obviously established a love of jazz and music. What's the best live jazz show you ever witnessed?
Oh, wow. Well, it's gonna have to be like I'm now more into smooth jazz, right? So there's, different types of jazz. I think the smooth jazz show that I love the best current day is Boney James. I
Okay.
just love to see him every time. Kirk Whalum is also good.
Yeah.
Chris Botti,
Hmm.
some of those smooth jazz folks. There was a time where Catalina Island would put together jazz shows, smooth jazz shows every October for 3 weekends in a row. And I probably went there, gosh, for 20 years, so probably every third weekend I would go. Um, those are the folks that are kind of in my ear a lot.
Yeah. A good friend of mine told me about the Kenny G documentary that was on HBO.
Mm,
Did you catch that?
I didn't catch it. No, I'll have
Okay.
to.
The one of the most fascinating things that they mentioned there, because it's just somebody I haven't looked into or considered as much, but in China during the heyday, they would play that really popular song of his over loudspeakers to
Oh,
motivate people.
yeah. Hmm.
So everybody going to work and coming home, they would hear that song and that was their motivator.
That is so cool.
It's
It is
wild.
a motivating song. Yeah, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah,
So
I just love the vibe you get from that music, and I always feel like I'm on vacation
sure.
when I'm hearing that type of music, and just I want to go to the ocean and just sit there and relax.
Well, you're fortunate enough to be right next to it.
Yeah, for sure. You'll have to come visit, Joe.
Yeah.
Where about you're in Midwest, right?
Kansas City,
You're
Missouri.
in
Yeah, I'm
Kansas City.
landlocked. So
You're
anytime I see
landlocked.
mountains or water, I'm like, oh my, what is this? So it's good. It's definitely good. So Celina, if anyone out there wants to learn more about you, hire you, anything pertaining to your world, where's the best place for them to go?
They can just go to our website, fullcapacitymarketing.com. It links to all of our socials. We have blog posts there, a lot of thought leadership articles, and we're just getting ready to launch an online course in coaching for entrepreneurs, workforce, and education on how to build a relevant brand. So you can check that out. That'll be coming out shortly in the fall.
Excellent. This has been a really good story that you've laid out. It almost seems like a Maslow self-actualized kind of ascension. So thank you for sharing it. Thanks for your time. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you, Joe. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.